It is exactly 1 p.m. East African time. Good afternoon. This is the great KBC and this is Lunchtime News. My name is Njue. Lucy Maura will be my colleague on the sign language interpretation. You can be part of this broadcast via our social media platform as we are live. We begin with matters governance, where petitioners who filed a case seeking to nullify the nomination of 12 members of County Assembly, that is MCAs, for the county of Murang'a, expressed their dissatisfaction with the court ruling and vowed to appeal the decision. The petitioners say they want the entire list of nominated MCAs scrapped.
The Murang'a County Court, in its ruling, only found 2 nominated MCAs, Priska Njue and Julian Njue, to have been unlawfully nominated as they are not registered voters in Murang'a County. Senior Resident Magistrate Susan Mwangi directed the IEBC to replace the 2 with 2 females who are in the county voters register. UDA Chairman Rose Modoni from Gatanga said a fresh nomination process should be conducted and those deserving the seats to take up the nominations.
Kesi yetu huko na wakatusikiza. Saa hii wametoa watu wawili, whereas tulikuwa tunataka ile listi yote ya nominated MCA itolewe. Sasa uamuzi wetu kwa koti tunataka kuwauliza ikiwa watu wawili walitolewa na tuko na watu wengine walibaki. Tunataka kuambia koti tunataka kwenda court of appeal ndio hii listi yetu iwe na justice.
Sentiments also echoed by Joseph Munyao from Idhanga, who argued that if the court nullified the nomination of 2 MCAs, all others should be nullified as well.
Tulitoka hapa wakati wa nomination, tukaona hiyo list yenye ilitolewa, minority groups hawakuwa considered and stroke marginalized. Kama hao watu wawili wamepatikana illegally, kwa hiyo nini hawakuwa imefanyika vizuri, tunaona hiyo list yote ikuwe nullified.
In other news, security officials in Litein in Bureti constituency, Kericho County, have seized 720 liters of illegal brews and arrested 4 suspects. Kericho County Police Commander Rico Ngari said police apprehended the suspects at a home last night.
Leading the operation, the county police commander reiterated that the operation to end the sale and distribution of illicit brew will continue, while warning government officials who collaborate with alcohol sellers that the law will catch up with them. Among the illicit liquor seized is 640 liters of busa and 80 liters of changa.
Hii operation itaendelea mpaka tufikie wakati tuone kuwa hii mambo ya pombe tumiangamiza kabisa. Lakini yule ambaye anafanya protection, anasaidia hao watu kufanya hii biashara haramu, then mkono wa sheria utamfikia na atakuwa mhalifu kama wale wahalifu wengine.
At the same time, a multi-agency team today netted suspected illicit liquor packaged as genuine brands of established farms valued at millions of shillings from an illegal distiller in an area along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi County. The brews were being distilled in what appeared like a makeshift distillery. According to authorities, the liquors lacked genuine Kenya Revenue Authority and Kenya Bureau of Standard stamps. Joanne Njue for Lunchtime News.
Moving on, Matuga legislator Kazim Tandaza has challenged the National Assembly to fast-track legislation on the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF, when they resume business next week. The legislator cited the financial burden that parents are going through since schools reopened for the first term.
Lawmakers said the funds should be disbursed on time to enable learners to have a conducive environment, with the amount being allocated to needy students being described as miaga.
Hata ukitolewa huwa hautoshi kwa sababu mahitaji ni mengi. Unaweza tu kutoa 5,000 kwa kila mzazi, na ile hali mzazi huyu anahitaji labda 20,000, 30 ama 40.
And more than 67 learners from Manyata constituency, Embu County, are set to benefit from an NGCDF scholarship program.
The issue of finances to do with the fees is already sorted out by the CDF.
1.7 million ambayo imelipia watu 67 school fees yao yote ya mwaka mzima.
Secondary school leavers have been called upon to embrace technical courses which will meet the demands of the current job markets.
Technical courses are the future of this country,
with all scholarship beneficiaries being called upon to maximize the scholarship opportunity.
Unatatizika utatoa karo wapi ya kusoma kosi yako, kija Manyata Vocational and Training College ulize ni kosi gani unaweza fanya.
Frederick Parsayo, Lunchtime News.
Elsewhere, Ngala Secondary School in Nakuru County has appealed to the government and well-wishers to help them raise funds for expansion of the school's infrastructure. Currently, the school, which caters for students with hearing impairment, cannot accommodate the ever-increasing enrollment at the institution.
The principal of Ngala Secondary School for the hearing impaired, Pauline Kimani, says the school's population has been growing over time and this has constrained the school's resources.
Of infrastructure, in terms of teachers and other equipment related to school.
Kimani says the boys' dormitory, which was constructed in 2009, was meant for 13 students, but the number of students needing accommodation is currently at 130 students, with some of them being forced to sleep in classrooms.
Our boys need to have a dormitory. Currently, we have some who are sleeping in a class.
Kimani notes that while the higher enrollment is a positive achievement, she says there is an urgent need for continued expansion of the school.
As I wait to continue admitting from ones, we as well need more classes and more teachers to take care of the students.
Pauline Nasimir for Lunchtime News.
And some good news for pensioners where retiring public servants will receive their pension within 90 days after exiting from service. A plan by the Pensions Department in the Treasury and Planning Ministry to fast-track the process of pension is underway. Already, the department has deployed its officers at the Teacher Service Commission and Vigilance House to help process pension for retiring teachers and police officers.
Municipal pensions officers Douglas Asanyo and Ann Kitole dismissed claims that there were cartels in the pensions department, noting that many retiring public servants fell in the hands of fraudsters.
So that members are able now, even the circular, the head of public service had issued a circular that members of the civil service, of the public service, are issued with a notice of retirement a year to retirement so that they can plan accordingly, put their records in order, and processing begins immediately.
The two were speaking in Malindi town during a sensitization workshop for public servants on the Public Service Superannuation Scheme. Mr. Asanyo acknowledged that there had been delays in the processing of pension under the old scheme, but laid the blame on the retirees. His sentiments were echoed by Anita Kitole, noting that there were reforms in place to ensure that pensions are paid within a short period.
Reforms ambayo ofisi imefanya kuhakikisha kwamba wateja wetu wanapata malipo yao kwa wakati unaofaa. Tunapoongea saa hii kunao maofisa wa pension ambao wametumwa katika ofisi ya Teachers Service Commission.
The new scheme is being administered by the PSSS Board of Trustees with representation from the Union of Kenya Civil Servants, the Kenya National Union of Teachers, and the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Teachers.
At least the pensioners have something to smile about. Well, on that note, we now cross over to the Consolata Shrine right here in the capital, Nairobi, where the Requiem Mass for former Education CS Professor George Magoha is currently underway. And Nancy Okware, my colleague, has been keeping tabs with what has been going on since morning, and she is now live. Good afternoon, Nancy.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Njue. We are coming to you live from the Consolata Shrine right here in Nairobi County, where the Requiem Mass for the late former Education Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, has just come to a close a few minutes ago. It is an exercise that was attended by a number of government officials, including the Cabinet Secretary for Information, that is Eliud Owalo, who also read the speech on behalf of President William Ruto. We also had representation from the current Education Cabinet Secretary, that is Ezekiel Machogu, as well as members of the cabinet that served alongside the late Professor Magoha during their tenure in the President Uhuru Kenyatta's government. Some of the late Professor Magoha has been eulogized as someone who was committed to service delivery, someone who was ready to ensure that the education system in the country improves. Remember that when the CBC was rolled out in this country, he was at the forefront in ensuring that the construction of our classes was going on in a very good manner, and also in a bid to ensure that there is the 100% transition. There was also the CS Magoha was at the forefront in going all the way to the slum areas to look at those children that had not gone back to school and bringing them back to school. Those are some of the memories that have been shared here, and of course the wife, that is Dr. Barbara Magoha, remembering the moments when they met in Lagos, Nigeria, and how they ended up getting married and relocating to the country, saying that despite Kenyans knowing the late professor as someone who was serious and who rarely smiled, back at home they would see smiles all the time. And of course those are sentiments that the son, that is Dr. Michael Magoha, also reiterated. Right now as we speak, we are waiting for the viewing of the body that is supposed to be taking place any minute from now, because the mass has just come to a close. Right behind me is where the body will be placed for members of the public and those who were in attendance just to come here and view the body and issue their final respects to the late Professor Magoha ahead of his burial on Saturday, the burial that will take place at Gem in Siaya County. Right now we can see the procession from the church, from the clergy that is just coming here to set up the place and make it ready for the viewing of the body that will be taking place any minute from now. Those are pictures that will be bringing you live in a short while. But for now, I hand it back to you, Njue, in studio.
Thank you so much, Nancy Okwaria, the Consolata Shrine there, keeping tabs with the Requiem Mass that has just ended for the former Education CS Professor Magoha, who will be laid to rest this weekend at his home. In other news, new Kitui County Executive Committee members have been sworn in office as 22 chief officers were appointed in a ceremony held at the governor's office compound. Kitui resident Magistrate Justine Amoro Asiago administered the oath of office, besides presiding over the signing of the Code of Conduct and Ethics by the chief officer appointees. Area Governor Dr. Julius Malombe said that the newly appointed team will help him reposition the county on the path of development and growth to realize the expectations of the electorate.
Ningetaka kuwauliza ministers and chief officers ambao wamekuja, tuwe tayari kufanyia watu wa Kitui kazi, so that by the end of this calendar year, that is by end of December, they start seeing changes in their lives.
Let's take a look at the drought situation in the country, where the government targets to raise 1 billion shillings to mitigate the effects of drought in the country by the end of this month. The National Steering Committee on Drought Chairman Peter Ndegwa said they have so far raised 650 million shillings for the kitty. Ndegwa said the committee has reached out to Kenya Defence Force to partner with them to drill 192 boreholes in the drought-hit counties. This even as they appeal to Kenyans to help in raising the amount in a bid to hit the target.
2 months after the formation of the National Steering Committee on Drought Response, the team has raised 650 million shillings for drought mitigation in the country. The chair of the steering committee, Peter Ndegwa, noted that through the funds raised, the task force has been able to distribute relief food to over 85,000 households from the worst hit counties.
By the end of this month, we'll have reached 300,000 beneficiaries through food initiatives.
As a long-term drought mitigation measure, the committee has partnered with Kenya Defence Force to put up at least 192 boreholes in the ASAL counties that will aid water scarcity.
We will have signed a partnership with KDF to repair boreholes that will benefit 1.7 million people, and there is more that we'll do beyond that.
Put in place.
The Media Council of Kenya has unveiled the new press cards which feature QR and barcodes that will be scanned using a smartphone. That report is coming up a little bit later, but for now, let's first of all cross over to the State House here in Nairobi. To apologize for that technical hitch, but as soon as we as soon as we rectify that issue, we will be crossing over to the State House, Nairobi, where President William Ruto and his counterpart are making a joint statement. Moving on, the Media Council of Kenya has unveiled a new press card which feature QR and barcodes that can be scanned using a smartphone to help authenticate the identity of journalists and media practitioners. Speaking in the meeting, the Media Council of Kenya CEO David Omoyo said the council had noted an increase in fraud incidences, thus necessitating a prompt measure to weed out quacks from the industry. He noted that the new generation cards would be the first step to establishing bona fide journalists.
So whether the card is expired, which means it's not a valid, or the Media Council number. So every time.
So anybody working will belong somewhere. There's nobody who will be stopped from doing journalism or producing content. So long as in our card, we know if something happens, we can trace you somewhere. That to us will be fine. And that's why colleagues, we know also we are getting challenges with this, especially media relation officers who sometimes also use those numbers to get money from their bosses to say, leo unaona wamekuja wengi. So toa kitu mzuri, sio? And we know this.
And before we accredit them, we must first ensure that they are trained on media ethics and the basics of journalism. So we don't just issue a card because ati unasema unafanya media, we just issue like that. If you are not trained, and some of them actually have a background of training in other professions, we say fine, you are an accountant, but you somehow you made.
We will be bringing that report a little bit later. Let's now cross over to State House.
To work together in matters of trade, investment, and development. It is counterproductive for us to continue to have a regime that creates obstacles and hurdles for citizens of our continent to move freely, to trade freely, to move products, goods, services freely across this continent, and therefore our decision, Your Excellency, this morning to abolish visa permanently between our two countries is a welcome momentum for us to build a continent that moves easily, that trades easily, and that does its business without hurdles. Your Excellency, we have also signed a framework agreement for cooperation, which will form the basis for elaborating joint action across various sectors. I look forward to the next joint commission of cooperation to give traction to each of these areas of action. I also look forward to continued and strengthened cooperation at the multilateral level and wish to thank President Afwerki for his gracious support of Kenya, including during our campaign for the United Nations Security Council seat. I have no doubt, Mr. President, that stronger cooperation will go a long way in driving the agenda at the global as well as at the regional level, and to ensure that all dynamics beyond the continent continue to impact positively on the lives of our people. Your Excellency, your decision to reconsider the membership of your country in our regional body, IGAD, will bring fresh impetus, will guarantee new wisdom in managing the affairs that are affecting our region, especially, Your Excellency, in the context of climate change. Greater cooperation, greater synergy, building connections between our region, especially in the Horn of Africa, that bears the brunt of climate change, is necessary now more than ever before. And I look forward, Your Excellency, to working with you as we build on the relationship between our two countries to provide necessary support to our region. Your Excellency, your decision to review relations between your country and Ethiopia in 2018 was a momentous occasion for our region. Your wisdom in making sure that we build a more harmonious region speaks for itself. And I look forward, Your Excellency, to working with you to deal with the challenges we have in the Horn of Africa. And I want to single out your training of Somali soldiers who are helping us pacify Somalia. We have Kenyan troops there, and your support for the Somali government by training their troops helps Kenya in making sure that we deal with the challenge of insecurity, the challenge of terrorism in Somalia, and I look forward to working with you to ensure that we stabilize Somalia, we eliminate terrorism, and we build a much more secure region. I also look forward, Your Excellency, to working with you in resolving the issues in Sudan and South Sudan, and working with our brothers in Ethiopia to build a better region for all our people, and ensuring that we make this region attractive for investment and for trade and for business. Your Excellency, again, on my own behalf and behalf of the people and government of Kenya, I want to thank you, and it is my hope that I will have another opportunity to host you, Mr. President, and my dear brother, His Excellency Isaias Afwerki, to this home, Kenya, again and soon. I know you call this place your home. Kindly convey my warmest regards on behalf of the people of Kenya to our brothers and sisters in the great country of Eritrea. Mr. President, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. President, I would start by saying again, congratulate you for your presidency, number one. I congratulate you for this initiative you took to visit Asmara and inspire everybody, including myself, to face the challenge. And as the saying goes, don't add anything to a wise person's comments or comment. What you have said, what you have mentioned is a joint statement for Eritrea and Kenya and beyond. So thank you for that again. You are inspiring millions across the region, in Kenya, Eritrea, Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, Djibouti, everywhere else, and across the continent. So for that again, I would like to sincerely thank you for this achievement. This is a milestone. This is a serious time where we, as I indicated to you while we were joking, we need to work 48 hours a day if there are 48 hours per day. We'll have to recoup our lost opportunity and work better in a very refined manner so that we can move faster and achieve what we have lost the last 2 decades and maybe more. Once again, I think this joint statement you have made is enough to explain what we are about. One very significant thing this morning, you talked about IGAD, your suggestion that we need to reconsider our membership to IGAD. I readily said, no question about that. We're rejoining or coming back again in IGAD with the idea of revitalizing this regional integration organization so that any meaningful bilateral cooperation between Kenya and Eritrea will have to be seen within the context of the integrated region. We cannot achieve bilateral goals without the broader integrated region that we have dreamt to create decades ago. This is no new invention, it's not reinvention, we are not reinventing anything. This is an obligation. In the name of the peoples of the whole region, we have to assume responsibility and revitalizing IGAD so that we can have a functional, real organization for the region is critical. Without that mechanism, ideals, goodwill will not be productive. We'll have to create an institution that is functional and result-oriented so that we can say we have changed the face of the region. I don't know where I can stop, but I will have to stop here and say your statement is a joint statement for everybody else. I would like to thank your team, our team, and the invited guests who've come to listen to this. We would like to prove to you, to everybody else in the region, that this time is completely different. We're working together, we'll achieve our goals, we'll create the necessary mechanisms for implementing goals, we'll have to mobilize resources so that we can be enabled to do what we need to do as an obligation for the peoples of the whole region. Once again, Mr. President, keep it up. Continue in Kenya and outside Kenya. Kenya is my second home, my first home, your second home is Eritrea, and everywhere else in the country. All the best of wishes for the people of the region, and good luck to Kenya and the people here in this country. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, we have members of the local and international media. We are going to take about 3 questions. 3 questions, and kindly, when you ask your question, direct it to either of their Excellencies or both if you want, and say the media house you represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellencies. My name is Emmanuel Igunza from BBC Africa. My question is to both of you, Excellencies, regarding particularly Ethiopia. Both of the countries are heavily invested in the peace and security in Ethiopia and also in the region. And part of the agreement that the country had made was for the withdrawal of Eritrean troops in Ethiopia, in Tigray region. Have you discussed this, and how do you think about this in terms of taking forward the peace process?
Sorry, Your Excellencies. We'll take them in succession, please.
I've gotten the. Repeat what I said.
Can you repeat your question again? I think the mic had a challenge at some point.
I just wanted to find out if you had further discussions regarding the peace process in Ethiopia. Part of it was the complete withdrawal of Eritrean troops in Tigray region, and how you see this as taking forward that peace process.
I wish there was a representative from the Ethiopian government here to address this issue because I have no intention of interfering in this matter, in spite of the disinformation campaign going on, trying to disrupt the process of peace in Ethiopia and trying to create a conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia, which has been the norm for those who come to promote their agendas in the region. We say enough is enough. Ethiopia will have to enjoy peace. The people in Ethiopia will have to enjoy peace. What happened in Pretoria and Nairobi is a continuation of the aspiration and wish of the peoples in Ethiopia and everywhere in the region. And Eritrea has no agenda, no plan of getting involved in this matter without the permission of the sovereign Ethiopian government. You talk about the withdrawal or no withdrawal, we've said this is nonsense. Don't provoke us to come to a misunderstanding on why are you bothered about Eritrean troops who are there or not there, come out and not come out. Let's assume that the peace process in Ethiopia is going without any obstacles. We would like to see the agreement signed in Pretoria or Nairobi implemented on the ground so that we can secure peace and stability in Ethiopia for the benefit not only of Ethiopians but the whole region.
I think, as the President has told you, that is a matter that is clearly and squarely going on the ground. I think we've made huge progress, tremendous progress, in implementing the peace agreement that was signed both in Pretoria and Nairobi, and all governments, including Kenya, which is a stakeholder in some way, all governments are satisfied with the implementation process of what is going on in Tigray. And therefore, I think it is a major milestone in the region providing a solution for challenges facing our region. The original agreement between Eritrea and Ethiopia was groundbreaking. This is something that was outstanding for many years. The fact that that was concluded peacefully in a progressive manner, and the fact that we are also making huge progress in ensuring that Tigray is safe and secure in accordance with the agreement that was signed is also testimony that the region is taking full charge of issues that affect our region.
One thing probably I may add and say, if you don't want this Pretoria and Nairobi agreement to be implemented, don't make a pretext of Eritrean presence or non-presence. This has nothing to do with the implementation of this arrangement, and don't look for excuse, don't look for pretext. That's not available now. Full stop.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Two more questions?
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. I have a question for Isaias Afwerki, His Excellency Isaias Afwerki. Still on Eritrea and Ethiopia.
Louder. We can't hear you.
Okay, cool. My name is Rael Umbor. I'm with the Washington Post here in Nairobi. So, what is Eritrea's response to
we cannot hear you. Can you raise your voice?
Like this? Okay, yeah. Cool. So, what is Eritrea's response to repeated overwhelming documentation of war crimes by Eritrean troops in Tigray? And why did it deny its presence there for 5 months after the troops entered? My second question is, how many Eritrean troops have been killed in Tigray? And my third question to you is, do you have a plan for transition of power or elections in your country? Thank you.
One question at a time. I will answer the first question. And don't take Eritrea as a pretext for problems in Ethiopia or elsewhere in the whole region. First and foremost, I would like to repeat this again and again and say, why is it an excuse for anyone, Washington Post or anybody else, As far as Ethiopia is concerned, this agreement is signed. It will take time to be implemented on the ground, and it's up to the government of Ethiopia to decide on the mechanisms and processes of implementing this arrangement. Don't try to drag us into a situation. But again, this question will have to go to a factory. A factory I call fabricating lies and disinformation, and go ask that factory or the owner of that factory who is talking about human rights abuse, who is talking about so many things happening on the ground. It's a fantasy of those who want to derail any peace process achieving its goal. If you are interested, I say you're wasting your time. Everybody talking about human rights violations here and there, rape, looting. This is a fantasy in the minds of those who are owning this factory I call a factory of fabricating misinformation.
Okay.
I've got it. Hi, thank you. Kara Anna with the Associated Press. I would like to follow up on a couple of my colleagues' questions. How many Eritreans were killed in the conflict in Tigray? And also, what kind of succession plan do you have? Are you indeed president for life? And if so, what happens afterwards? Thank you.
Same question. It's intoxicating you. These lies and fabrications are keeping your mind set in the wrong direction. I say correct that so that you can ask the right question at the right time.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. I would now like to invite you for tree planting exercise. For the rest of the delegation, you'll be guided by the protocol for the luncheon, and the journalists will be guided where you'll take the pictures.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very well, that has been a joint statement between President William Ruto of Kenya and Isaiah Afwerki of Eritrea. They're talking about strengthening bilateral ties in the region, and I've been able to pick some of the things is that Eritrea have been commended for training of Somali soldiers to fortify the region, and I've talked about strengthening the ties, and I think the latest and the newest is that Eritrea are considering going back to IGAD, that is the Intergovernmental Authority on Development. Well, on that note, we take a quick break. We'll be right back with more news.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
No.
Surprise! What you're going to do when you find out that what this man has done is deceive your daughter. When that happens, it will have to be my daughter who will have to ask for explanations. Or me, because I'm her father. But not you. Okay? So if you want to start a fist fight, just don't do it in my house. That's what the streets are for. Is that understood?
I know I have no right to demand anything at all. You're absolutely free to do whatever you want. Well, but if you insist on working for him, even partially, I'm afraid I'm going to have to take extra measures and weigh which is more important to me at this ranch.
Oh, Karina, for goodness sake. How could you go to Rodrigo's house perfectly knowing that Mrs. Ricardo also lives there? But what can I do?
To get Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 as your skiza tune, dial *811 *967 #.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not in your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 to 6.
To get Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5, dial *811 *967 967 hash. Star 811 star 967 hash.
Welcome back and thanks for keeping it KBC. Mombasa-based community mobilizer and peace builder Shamsa Abubakar has vowed to empower 200 women and youth-led groups in Mombasa. Abubakar had just returned from Dubai after receiving the Zayed Award for Human Fraternity 2023. While addressing the media at the Moi International Airport, Mombasa, Shamsa said that the win serves as a motivation to all women and peace builders in their respective communities.
This is a motivation to all women who want peace in their homes, who want their children to be better citizens. There is a space for you out there. Somebody is watching, like Mama Shamsa. This is a win, not for Mama Shamsa. It's a win for women peace builders. This is a win, not for Mama Shamsa. It's a win for women peace builders. This is a win for women who try to earn a livelihood for their families. This is a win for our youths who have lost hope. There is hope, and the hope is in us women.
Elsewhere, 4 people are feared dead after a gold mine collapsed in Sigalagala Ward, Shinyalu constituency, Kakamega County. The gold mine is said to have collapsed last night and trapped 12 people in the debris. 8 people have already been rescued. While confirming the incident, Kakamega County Commissioner John Ondego said that all gold miners should be vigilant to avoid such-like tragedies. Stern warnings being sent to rogue miners who breach the set standard for mining.
Mlipuko na tukijua ni mlipuko aje, tukaanza kuuliza nini imefanyika. Shimo imepasuka na imeanguka, watu wasonge kuromoka, alafu ikafoza kwa ile shaft na udongo ikajaza chini.
And learning activities have been paralyzed at St. Aquinas Komosoko Secondary School in Kuria West for the past 2 days after parents closed the school demanding for the transfer of the school principal. The parents have accused the school principal of poor management, calling for his immediate transfer.
These were the scenes outside the St. Aquinas Komosoko Secondary School gate as parents demonstrated and demanded the removal of the current school principal. The parents, led by Dalmas Omoro, cited demands of unexplained levies and poor performance of the school since the new principal took charge as some of their reasons for their protest.
Huyu mwalimu mkuu anatoza wanafunzi ada ya shilingi ya remedial shilingi 3,000 na wanafunzi wenyewe hawasomi na tuoni wanafunzi hao wanaenda darasani. Maendeleo ya shule tangia alipoingia kwenye hii shule imedidimia kabisa. Majengo hata tangia aliingia akapata yale majengo yalikuwa pale ndio mpaka sasa hii tunaona hata rangi kupaka tu hajaipaka.
His sentiments were echoed by John Barry, adding that the Ministry of Education has been adamant in listening to their grievances for the past 2 years.
Kutoka 2019 matokeo yao tangu ameingia hapa matokeo ni mabaya, sio kama yule aliyeenda tu mlango ama milango ifungwe, kila kitu principal asiingie kwa sababu yeye ndiye ana mambo yote hayo, kwa sababu amegawa staff yake, hata kipindi chake ndicho kinafuta mkia na kuna mmoja wao ambaye hawafundishi. Kwa hivyo ndio tunaona kwamba heri huyu aende ili tupate mwingine mpya, tuanze mpya, bodi ichaguliwe mpya.
Director of Education Migori County Jacob Oyengo has appealed to the parents and other stakeholders to remain patient and allow the learning process to go on as they sort out other issues affecting the school. For Lunchtime News, I'm Abdulaziz Abeid.
The Kenya Wildlife Service is working on modalities to create room for honorary wardens with a view to improving wildlife conservation efforts. And as Wycliffe Okech reports from Kisumu County, the service is currently conducting public participation forums on its proposed rates review that is aimed at increasing fees charged on visits to national parks, reserves and sanctuaries.
The Kenya Wildlife Service team was on Wednesday in Kisumu County to seek the views of the locals and civil society organizations on its proposed review of the rates charged on visits to wildlife habitats.
They are working with international organizations.
The service says the proposal has been necessitated by seasonal changes throughout the year, as well as the need to generate funds to improve various facilities within the habitats.
We're also looking at our tourism industry, the tourism business within the county and around the country. The fluctuation is a contribution to enhancing the tourism industry in the country.
It is also engaging stakeholders on its program dubbed Safe Access to Water, which is meant to develop mechanisms to reduce, if not eradicate, cases of human-wildlife conflict around the lake region.
And safe access to water takes cognizance of the fact that people have to access the lake. The crocodiles and the hippos live in the lake, but they have to come on land to feed, or once in a while. And so that interaction between people who need water, who are fishing, who are carrying out their livelihoods needs to be safe.
During the deliberations, the service revealed it is working on modalities to bring honorary wardens on board for the purposes of improving conservatory efforts.
People are willing to come on board as honorary wardens, but they do not know how. And so this is an opportunity for us now, because there is already a procedure for us to engage and bring on board teams that then support us willingly with their energy, with their resources, to do that which we cannot achieve as Kenya Wildlife Service alone.
Participants in the forum further challenged the service to seek partnerships with schools by engaging wildlife clubs in a wildlife conservatory spirit. The service takes the forum to Eldoret on Thursday. For Prime Edition from Kisumu County, I am Wycliffe Okech.
Make sense of shillings and cents in business. Just 1,431 farmers out of the targeted 1.1 million farmers have so far bought the subsidized fertilizer. Crops Principal Secretary Harsame Kello blames the low uptake of subsidized fertilizer program on lack of information, adding that the government has revised the e-voucher expiry period from 7 days to 30 days to encourage uptake.
The National Treasury has released 15.3 billion shillings for the subsidized fertilizer program that is expected to see maize farmers in the country's maize belt buy 10 million bags of both planting and top dressing fertilizer. However, the government says so far only 1,431 maize farmers have purchased the subsidized fertilizer, with the government targeting 1.1 million maize farmers ahead of the planting season.
Because we are starting, the picking is a bit slow, but we have registered that 1,431 farmers have already picked their fertilizers, and some of them have started using them.
To increase the uptake, the government has extended the expiry date of the e-voucher from the current 7 days to 30 days.
It is a whole of government approach to ensure that the fertilizer reaches the farmers in good time for them to plant within season. And scientists, our officers tells us, if we plant within the first 10 days of the rains coming in, the yields will be around 80-90% of the normal whatever.
Large-scale maize farmers in the 12 targeted counties have been encouraged to apply for the subsidized fertilizer to increase maize production.
Fertilizer number is not limited. If you have 1,000 acres and you want to produce as a farmer, so long as you are registered and you indicated that you will plant 1,000 acres, you will get your 2 bags per acre. So there is no limit.
Traders and millers have received licenses to import 10 million bags of maize.
We have issued import licenses to a number of traders, to a number of millers who are going to import maize from now. The import license takes effect from the beginning of February. Some people have started bringing in maize. They are going to help us offset the food deficit.
Benson Njue reporting for Lunchtime News.
Elsewhere, CDH Kenya partner Alex Kanyi says expansion of the tax base is a solution to alleviating the tax burden. The Kenya Revenue Authority has been tasked with increasing tax collection from 2.1 trillion shillings in the last financial year to 5 trillion shillings in the short term.
The government is pushing for the expansion of the tax base as an antidote to the country's debt crisis. President William Ruto has directed the Kenya Revenue Authority to increase tax collections from 14% of GDP to 25%. This translates to a jump from 2 trillion shillings collected in the last financial year to 5 trillion shillings in the year 2027. Enrollment on the iTax system has improved over the years, but the government is optimistic that more can be collected. The increased tax revenue targets mean that the taxman will be looking for new ways to net more taxes.
There are tough times ahead. So in terms of advice is just to ensure that you're compliant already with your existing tax obligations. So that's number one. Two, you need to keep abreast with changing tax laws. We have the finance bill that will be coming up and then to become an act from the 1st of July. So there will be a lot of public participation again involved there.
Kanyi says the lean tax base has overburdened those in the formal sector.
For the longest time, I think we've been relying on the same taxpayers, even when you're talking about increasing taxes. So be it excise duty, you're looking at the same guys who are doing either alcohol, spirits, or other soft beverages. Be it PAYE, you're looking at the same people who are also paying pay-as-you-earn on their salaries. So it's time to look at other sectors to expand that tax base. It's time we look at that discussion on taxing the informal sector. So be it the mamambogas, be it guys in Gikomba, it's time to think of, are they paying their fair share of tax, and perhaps government will focus more on those as well.
Higher revenue targets for the taxman mean a heavier tax burden for the Kenyan, but experts are urging the public to ensure that they participate in the budget-making process and tax law processes before they become legalized.
Let's interact, let's engage, as opposed to reacting when already the tax measures are in our laws. Let's participate when those laws are being made so that our voice can be heard. We can tell the government, okay, you want to raise tax in this particular way, but we're not comfortable. Could you consider perhaps another way? So let's get involved.
Betty Kiptum, Lunchtime News.
In other news, the construction of 3 water pans in Tana River County is set to be completed in June this year. The project aims to enhance irrigation infrastructure and water resource development in the semi-arid county. The government is spending 300 million shillings in the semi-arid county to deal with food security and water scarcity.
The Small Irrigation and Value Addition project aims at reducing poverty by enhancing agricultural productivity, income and food security in 16 arid and semi-arid counties. The project will also see the construction of access roads, new markets and storage facilities for farmers in the targeted counties. Late last year, the Minister of Agriculture released 300 million shillings to help expedite the construction of the water pans. The project involves the construction of 3 water pans in the Mkomani, Nkozi and Mpongwe areas in Tana River County. Drilling and equipping of 8 boreholes, fencing and reseeding of pasture grounds in Chifiri and Hakoka is already complete. The project is funded by the African Development Bank, Global Agriculture and Food Security Program and the Government of Kenya. The project is being implemented in Tana River, Makueni, Kajiado, Machakos, Bomet, Tharaka Nithi, Meru, Nyeri, Nyandarua and Kitui by the State Department for Crop Development and Agricultural Research. Terry Njenga, Lunchtime News.
The Supreme Court of Nigeria has temporarily suspended the deadline to stop using old banknotes, which had caused a cash crisis in the country. This Supreme Court's decision comes after a legal challenge initiated by the northern states earlier this month. Here are the details of this and other stories from across Africa.
Many banks in Nigeria have not had enough of the new Naira notes, leading to desperate and chaotic scenes as people tried to get their hands on them. The local media has been reporting fights at ATMs, protests and mob attacks on commercial banks. The chaos led to concerns that it could affect this month's elections, as many Nigerians do not have bank accounts. Nigeria's central bank said the currency redesign will help it tackle inflation, which is currently running at about 21%, curb counterfeiting and promote a cashless society. It said 80% of the notes currently in circulation were being held outside financial institutions. And meanwhile, Rwanda's economy has been forecast to grow at a slightly slower pace this year before picking up speed again next year and in 2025. The economy was forecast to grow 6.2% this year and around 7.5% in 2024 and 2025. The leading sectors in Rwanda include energy, agriculture, trade and hospitality and financial services. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Rwanda enjoyed strong economic growth, averaging over 7% GDP growth annually over the last 2 decades. According to World Bank, Rwanda is a small but growing market with a GDP of $10.35 billion. And finally, in Tanzania, Tigo says it had achieved a 5G download speed of 1 gigabyte per second, making it the fastest in Tanzania. Besides this, the company has also been the first to launch 5G technology in Zanzibar, and similar technology has been deployed in Dodoma. This is engineered to greatly increase the speed and responsiveness of wireless networks. The decision to launch 5G technology stemmed from the company's desire to meet the ever-increasing bandwidth demand from the diverse needs of customers, businesses, automation, and gaming.
In sports, European champions Real Madrid will face Asian champions Al Hilal